Thank you guys for all coming tonight. I just want to introduce myself. I'm Katrina, a sponsor teacher at Family Partnership, and I'm just here to introduce our host tonight, Amy Bristor. She is the coordinator for the Alaska Advantage program at UAF, and she's going to teach us all about this program, and she's also going to answer questions. So if you do have any questions, just type them into the chat box. I'll be watching that as she talks, and I'm just going to hand it over to Amy and say thank you in advance for this.
Thank you, Katrina. Yeah, so Katrina introduced me in with the University of Alaska Fairbanks with the Alaska Advantage program, and we're super excited. We just signed Anchorage School District last week as a new partner, so we are very excited about getting students from your school and other schools on board to be able to take classes through the Advantage program. Yes, Jessica. So real quick, the Alaska Advantage program is, let me pull my thing up so I can see mine. We're a brand new program. Last fall we started the program, and so we're still in our infancy. And what the program is a way for Alaska students to take college classes at a reduced rate. So what we saw within Alaska was students paying full tuition at the universities or taking classes through other resources that were outside of Alaska. And we really wanted to give students the opportunity to take college classes and get high school credit at the same time to get that jump start on their college career. So what the program is we like to think of it almost as a virtual middle college. So it gives students that opportunity to take one class, or I have some students in full-time credits. So it's a great opportunity. This fall semester, we just partnered also with the University of Alaska Southeast. And so our offerings are through both the University of Alaska Fairbanks and Southeast. We have, I think, over 350 courses to choose from. So there's definitely something out there for everyone. So how the program works is we were able to get a package price. That means, for those of you that maybe are familiar with how paying for college classes works, normally you pay tuition and fees. So it starts to pile up pretty quickly. And what we were able to do is to get a package price of $165 per credit. What that means is a normal class, most classes are 3 credits. So a 3 credit class is going to be $495, and that's it. There's no fees on top of that. The only additional costs that you may see there are a few classes that have a lab fee of anywhere from $50 to $100 depending on the class. But a normal class that you're going to be looking at the university, if you pay for it yourself, not through Advantage, you're going to be paying anywhere from $900 to $1,000. So it is a significant savings for students. It's able to stretch your allotment dollars a lot further too as a homeschool student. And we do have several homeschool students that take advantage of this. We're here to help with the registration process. That's a lot of what I do. We also have a registration office that does that assistance as well. We can help, mostly me, can help with career and college advising. So I'm working with some students that their goal is to actually graduate from high school with also an associate's degree. So we have some students on track for that. But I also work with some students that know what kind of degree program they're thinking about doing, and then we talk about the classes that would work towards that. Testing, technology, there's online support. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Tutoring services virtually. And so essentially, to sum it all up, we're here to help. And that's our goal, is to make sure that you are successful in your college class, mostly so that you feel comfortable when you go off to college, as well that you have that great experience and that you know what you're doing when you start college for real. The Advantage program, we do have a dedicated website. I do encourage folks to use that website. We have a list of courses there that are narrowed down a little bit more for high school students to pick from. And so what we do is we narrow the list down to 100 and 200 level classes. Those are your like first year and second year classes. That way you're not getting overwhelmed by how many classes are out there through the University of Alaska Fairbanks and Southeast. So we don't want you to get lost. The other reason why we want you to go to the website is in order to make sure that this package price gets put onto your account, we have you do a registration form from our website. So for those of you that have already taken, maybe UAA classes or, UAF or UAS classes, if you've used UA Online before, we don't necessarily want you using that because we have to go find you in there to fix your account. So by putting in a registration form through our website, that allows us to make sure that your account is correct from the beginning. If you're new, never taken classes before at any campus, then you're going to fill out what's called the high school dual enrollment application. This is on the admissions website. There's no cost to this. This is a free application. This is what gets you activated in the system. And for many different reasons, we want to get you active in the system. And I'll talk about some of those reasons here in a second. That will also activate you for registration. And make sure that you pay attention to your emails, the email that you've used to apply with. You're going to get some confirmation emails back to that same email. So for current students, that means that you have taken classes through UAA, UAF, or UAS. You don't need to do that part. You just can go straight into that registration form and fill it out. Students that are registering for math and science, which is a lot of you, as well as writing or English, there's going to be some placement, possibly testing that we may need to have done for you. So the placement, we have English/writing placement. So you're going to find your language arts type classes under two different subject designators. One will be English and the other will be writing. Almost all first year classes require placement into Writing 111. It is a really good class to start with. That's the class I tend to recommend to almost all students when they're getting started. The reason why is it's the first year class that everyone has to take, and it just kind of opens up the doors for all the rest of your classes. We do have placement for Writing 111 that we are currently doing that is a little bit different than what we used to do. So what we used to use was the AccuPlacer, and with COVID happening, we're not doing that any longer. And I believe the UAA campus is not doing currently in testing. Here at UAF though, we did a different route, which actually I feel like is better than the AccuPlacer. And we are doing an alternative writing placement that we started in the summer. And so for high school students, if you have a cumulative GPA of a 3.5 or higher, we will go ahead and just place you into Writing 111. You don't need to do anything else. On that registration form that you're going to fill out, we're going to have that question in there. So that's what we'll be using. If you don't have a 3.5 or higher, or the other reason why I might recommend it is if you are maybe a little bit of a younger student. So I've been talking to some sophomores and even freshmen in high school that are thinking about taking college classes. I would probably recommend for you to take the writing placement. the alternative placement, just to make sure that we put you in the right course and that you're not feeling overwhelmed. And that alternative placement is pretty easy. It's going to ask a few questions. It was designed by the English department. And then there's a small writing sample that they ask for, that they give you a prompt for. So it's pretty painless. And then they connect back with you and let you know where you placed. The other way that we can place for English and writing placement is using the ACT or SAT. We are seeing less and less students with that though because of COVID. So if you have it, for sure we can use it. If you don't, we'll do that other method. And then math placement, of course, all math courses are going to require it, but also the other one is most of our science courses also require math placement. So if you're thinking about doing either one of those, we will want you to take the ALEX math placement. And the way that you get into that is by logging in using your University of Alaska username and password, which you get set up once you've been activated into the system. And then finally, and I'll show you an example of prerequisites here in a second. Many courses have prerequisites, what we call prerequisites. So a prerequisite could mean that it's an English or writing placement. It can mean math placement. It could also mean that you need to take a class before you can take that other class. So a common one I've been seeing recently is a lot of high school students are really interested in creative writing, which is great. However, that class requires Writing 111, the completion of it, before you can take creative writing. So there's just a few things to pay attention to as you're looking at classes. And I'm always happy to help if you have questions on that kind of thing. So what I did is, this is an example of a class. When you get into there and you click on course details under the class descriptions, Biology and Society 103, this is a really popular class with high school students. This under the prerequisites, that very far left column, so you'll see that it says placement of Writing 111, also placement in Math 105. So just something to keep in mind when you're looking through the classes. With the registration form, you're going to notice some questions in there that you may not have, might be surprised by. One of the questions is, we're going to ask you for an observer. And what an observer is somebody from your school that essentially what we're going to do is give them access to the course for the student. So for parents, we don't give you access. We only give the school the access. So it could be your counselor, it could be your contact teacher. Usually it's the person that you're working closely with from the school. That person then can, see if there's things that you haven't turned in, go see what your grades are, those kinds of things they can see in there. They can't submit work for you though. They can only just go in there and peek. Parent and guardian permission. Anyone that's under 18, we will need a parent and guardian release form prior to registration. And that's part of the information that you'll get when you're a brand new student. You'll get an email with that information that you need to go to that online form. So that will need to be received. And then FERPA. FERPA is very different at the college level than it is at the high school level. And this is not a requirement, but I do heavily recommend it because it helps open up that communication between the parents and our office. So what a FERPA does, a FERPA release, is it allows a student, and it has to come from the student, to let us know who we can talk to. So it could be parents. I've seen students put older sisters, grandparents, aunt, uncles. It doesn't matter. That it's up to the student on who they tell us we can talk to. So what it'll do is it'll allow for whoever that designee is to give us a call or send us emails and ask us more personal questions than what we would normally give out otherwise. And then payment, especially with homeschools, we often get payment directly from the homeschools, and we help facilitate that. The one thing I will say that you need to do on your end is just make sure that you've done that paperwork. Every homeschool is different. And so making sure that you get that in well prior to the payment deadline. And I'll go through that calendar here at the end. So for students, what you can expect is that these courses are going to be asynchronous. And what asynchronous means, and I think you guys are familiar with this, but it's a question we get a lot. That means there is no set meeting time for your course. So you don't have a day of the week that you meet, those kinds of things. There are some language classes that do choose a synchronous time to meet, but they choose that time after the class has started and everyone agrees upon that time. And that's mostly to practice your language skills if you're thinking about doing that. These are open college classes. So that means you're going to be in class with other college students. These are not high school classes for college credit. As a result of that, you may experience content or concepts that are not found normally in a high school course. So just something to be aware of. High school classes and college classes are set up very differently in their pace. And so with college classes, we are covering content over a semester that you would normally experience over a full year. So calculus, as an example, normally you would have your entire school year to complete calculus. We do it in 16 weeks in that semester. So just something to keep in mind when you're deciding on how many classes to take and how much time you have to spend on them. And then speaking of time spent, this is our rule of thumb for how much time you should spend on a course, but typically, and some may be more, but typically it's about 3 to 4 hours per week per credit. So most classes are 3 credit class. So you're looking at about, 10 hours a week for each course. So tips for success, obviously logging into your class and start working on the course, starting on Monday, January 11th. That is when spring semester kicks off. And for students in online classes, if you try to log in just a little bit before that into Blackboard, you may not see your course. And that's because some instructors actually don't what we call turn on their course until that date because they don't want you to start working on it early. So don't freak out if you log in early and you don't see your course. I will say like 90% of the classes are not self-paced. And by that, I mean that you're gonna still have weekly assignments and deadlines and, there may be like a weekly quiz or a test on a certain date. So just keep that in mind as you're looking through your class and, staying on track. And syllabus is really, really important. This will help you stay on track. This is something that I really recommend, referencing all the time, daily, if you can. And I always tell students, they laugh when I say this, but I always refer to the syllabus as your Bible for the semester. Like that is your thing. Do not forget about it. Don't throw it away. Like go to it all the time. It's going to be what tells you what's happening in the class at all times. This is the second to last one, is probably the hardest one for students, especially high school students. It can be really scary contacting, somebody that you don't know, let alone, a professor or an instructor of a college class. But it is the thing, and I used to work in admissions and I experienced this even with first year college students too. So it is not an uncommon thing. But it is the first thing I usually ask students when they contact me and they're having issues in a class. I'll ask if they've contacted their instructor, and usually the answer is no. So the instructors are there for your success. They want to help you. They also know how their class is set up and, you know, the answers to those questions. And so that is really the place to go contact if you're having issues and you're not sure what to do. But finally, you know, if you're stuck and you're not getting answers or you're just not sure, like, I am the person to contact and I can help you with that. I don't expect all of you to like fiercely write these down, but I just want to kind of go through them really quick. We also do an orientation prior to school starting, and we go through this as well on that. But I just want to give you an idea of some of the tutoring support that's available for classes. The first one is SLED. If you're not familiar with SLED, this is actually available to all high school students and college students. It's an Alaska resource available for homework. So you guys can use this now. You don't have to wait for a college class. We have a math lab for students that are in courses. So we kind of have two different tracks of math. We have like the calculus track and the non-calculus track. So the first one is for that non-calculus track. Our community and technical college also does tutoring support for all writing classes. And then that second math one is for that kind of calculus track and statistics. And then writing support, we have a writing center, which is very similar to the community and technical college one. One thing I will say with the writing center and writing support, you don't have to be in a writing or an English class to get support. It could be you have a history paper due or whatever. If it's a paper that you have to write for a class, go see the writing center. They can help with planning and drafting and revising and getting getting that all polished. And then finally, if you have any documented disabilities that we can help make accommodations for, disability services can certainly help with that. So if you're not sure where to go on that, I can also help guide you through that. Get lots of questions about textbooks. And so I wanted to make sure that this was addressed really quickly in here. So textbooks, we have a website. You can just Google UAF bookstore. And then when you get there, you'll see a link to textbooks. You'll need to know your class. So you need to know both the department, so like math, the course. So the course would be F151. And then more importantly, you need to know your section number because there's multiple, what we call section numbers with different instructors. So some instructors, different instructors use different books depending on their class and the content. And then once you put that information in, it will spit out the required textbooks or resource materials. I mean, there's all sorts of different things that instructors require. You may also see no books required for this course. So there's been a recent, well, it's not super recent, but there's been a lot more instructors utilizing this. We have a lot of folks that are using what's called a free open source textbook, which is awesome because that is exactly how it sounds. It's free and you don't have to spend money because you're gonna very quickly discover textbooks are extremely expensive in some cases. So there's an example of chemistry on there and it looks like a chemistry textbook is $136, which is, then that's not just, you know, all your materials you need for the lab as well. But an open source textbook, the instructor will give you instructions on how to download that free source, and then you have it as an electronic textbook essentially. And then if you decide that you want to take a science class, you will do your labs from home, and you will order typically a lab kit, and a lab kit can be purchased sometimes from the bookstore. So this is an example of the chemistry lab kit, which it looks like is $316. So lab kits are pretty spendy. And then, or some instructors are working directly with the vendors for lab kits. We are getting ready to go into holiday closure. The university closes every year for about 2 weeks. So starting on Monday, I will actually be periodically checking my email. So if you have questions, you may get a delayed response from me, but I'll respond. And then we'll be back on Monday, January 4th. So we'll have approximately a week before classes start when we get back, which start on Monday, January 11th. And the other reason why I always encourage students to log in and get working on their class right away is to also figure out whether or not it's the right class for them. So some students will get into a class and realize that wasn't really what I wanted, and maybe I want to switch into something else, or this was a little more than I can, it's a little more than I can chew right now. So I think I might want to withdraw from the class, and that's okay too. We give students 2 weeks to decide on whether or not they want to stay in a class, swap out, do whatever they need to do. So that last day is Friday, January 22nd. That's also the last day for fee payment. So that's why we want to make sure that you get that paperwork into the school so that they can get the money over to us in that time frame. And then I realize this is kind of fast if folks are freaking out about signing up for spring and maybe they're not sure about if they have enough time. Summer registration, we do have summer classes. Summer registration is going to open up at the beginning of February. And it's a good time also if you're thinking about maybe taking a harder class and you want to just focus on one class at a time, or just that class. Summer is a really great time to just focus on like one class that might be a harder class in the normal semester for you. The end of March, so withdrawals, some students, again, something doesn't work out, whatever it might be, we do allow students to withdraw from a course. The grade that they will get is a W, and I tend to encourage students, if something's not going well, to withdraw from a course rather than receive a failing grade, because we don't want that to be their first college experience. So if you're struggling in a class or anything like that, give me a call. There's some suggestions I can make and maybe help you through, coaching you through getting through the course. And then I know it sounds like it's too far away, but it really is going to happen in April. Fall 2021 registration will open. And so we really want to get students situated in their classes sooner, so that we do have a lot of classes that fill up pretty fast. And so I just want to make sure that you guys get the spots that you want. And then final exams are that last week in April. So that's all I have. I'm not sure if there was any questions coming through in the chat as I was talking, Katrina.
There were no questions, but if anyone has questions now, it's a great time to ask.
And I just realized I have Elfbuster still as my name on here, so I might explain that just really quickly. I did a trivia holiday party last night, and that was the name of our trivia group, and we won. So. So does anyone have any, oh, I have a student in. Yes, we do offer writing 110. And I'm not sure if they are signed up for one of our classes, I can certainly check if you want to connect with me. And if not, we can make sure that they're in the right class that's going to be the discounted rate. So that's the other thing, is making sure that not all classes qualify for the Advantage discounted rate. That's the other reason why we make sure that students are looking at the classes on our website, to make sure that they're seeing the classes that are going to have that discounted rate. Yeah, good question, Jessica. So the transferability of UAF classes to lower 48 institutions, we are accredited with the Northwest College, the regional accreditation. And that means regional is good. Like, that's the kind of accreditation that you want to look for in a university. I know it sounds opposite, but national accreditation is actually what you don't want. So steer away from the national accreditation, look for regional accreditation. So with regionally accredited institutions, it means that our credits will transfer. However, I always encourage students to connect with that school that they're thinking about going to make sure that the credits that they're taking are going to count towards the degree program that they're looking at. So every university, so what we count as general education requirement classes may be different at a different university. They may have very specific requirements. So it's always a good idea to do your homework and check in with those institutions. Brenda, UAA does not have that same discounted program, as far as we know right now. Right now, we started the program, we brought on UAS. And so right now the classes are through UAF and UAS. Is there a list of classes for 10th grade? Do you mean like 10th grade classes that would be equivalent? Is that the question? Yeah, so what I always encourage students to do is to work closely with their school. You're going to want to connect with the school to make sure that the class that you're picking is going to be equivalent to the class you're trying to fulfill at the high school side of things. Also, just making sure that you're on track for the Alaska Performance Scholarship, all of those things. So the school is your best resource for making sure that those types of things get aligned. Yeah, Brenda, you can absolutely, so you can take, I have lots of students who only take one class. I also have a handful of students who are going full bar. They're taking 12 credits to 15 credits. So essentially they are full-time college students for all intents and purposes. So you can take as little or as many classes as you want. One thing that I would like to also mention is for seniors, and I don't know if we have any seniors in here, folks that might listen later on, any outgoing seniors that are graduating this year, we're extending that same price for the summer of their outgoing senior year. So if there's any interested seniors that want to take a college class or two after they've graduated from high school and going into college, which we actually do have a lot of students that do that, we will give them the discounted price as well. It's nice to see you, Jessica. We've talked lots on the phone. Is there any other questions? I think Katrina is going to pop on here.
Well, I have a question. I'm just wondering about kids who are on an IEP. If you have any advice for the parents, other than the things that you said, ways to be successful, just other advice for us parents to help our kids be successful?
Yeah, I think if they're on an IEP, then I definitely recommend for them to contact Disability Services because they can help with accommodations as small or as large as they need. So that's one resource. You know, I think the overarching thing for all students that I have seen over the years is just that contact. It's the advocating for themselves. and doing the outreach. And it's tough at the beginning. It can be a little scary to make that first outreach to a scary professor or whatever they're thinking in their mind. And I'll tell a story about myself. Like when I first started at UAF, my very first assignment in my writing 111 class was to go to the writing center. Like that was the very first thing that they had us do. I was so terrified of going to the writing center. I have no idea why, that I actually dropped the class out of pure terror. So I think a lot of successful students are the students that can trudge through, that have the tenacity, that can, it's not even about grades. Like I've seen students not do well and are straight A students. And a lot of it has to do with that connection to the professor, advocating for themselves, doing that reach out and connection. Even if it's to me, that's fine. I've seen students that are successful that just consistently reach out to me. I think those, and from the family side point, I would say the support to, have you contacted your professor? Have you done that? That reach out, that's what I think is the best thing to do. And paying attention to the syllabus. The two things I always ask: have you looked at the syllabus? Have you contacted your instructor? And usually the students that are struggling, the answer is no. So, thank you, Tristan. Is there any other questions? All right. Thank you, Katrina. Yes. And let me just put our website as well. If you're lazy like me, you can just Google UAF Advantage and it'll take you to our page right away at the very top of Google. So that's an easy way to find us. Well, thank you for joining me tonight. I hope to chat with you guys. If you have questions, feel free to connect with me. I'm always happy to help. Thanks, Brenda.
Thank you for sharing with us. That was super informative, and it really opened my eyes to a lot of opportunities. So thanks for taking time to walk us through that and for being available for us to email.
Yeah, thank you.